there really isn't much vulnerability in the
Yeah.
head. It's your heart space.
Yeah,
So
from
it
the
gets
head
you
to the
into
heart.
from your head to the heart. So it goes right back to the
The
heart.
longest road is from the head to the heart.
I
It's
know.
in a song. I can't remember what
But
song.
it seems so short.
It's so close, but it's so far
far
away. I believe that each and every one of us has the power within ourselves to create the life that we really want. And I want to help give you the tools to make that happen. I'm Danica Patrick, and I'm Pretty Intense. Welcome to the Pretty Intense podcast. Today is a special show with my friend Stacey Barnes. We've been friends for 15 years, and we have been known to do plenty of deep diving together when no one is listening, but we thought it'd be really cool to deep dive for you guys on one word, and the word today is vulnerable. This is a really important concept and something to embrace as a person. I can't think of a way that it would hurt you to be more vulnerable, but it is also very difficult. So we're going to go into what that looks like, what that's looked like for us, what it means to us, and hopefully you can take something away that will hopefully make you a little bit more vulnerable yourself and connect with people and connect with situations in a meaningful way. So please enjoy. One of the hardest things to do is to be vulnerable. And it's almost it's like one of the hardest things to do, even if you want to do it, because it's hard to get to the deepest layer of vulnerability. Like we've been talking about so much lately, it's like there's the surface projection of an emotion or projection of the deeper emotion that's like, you've done something, I'm mad at you. But
Reaction.
the vulnerability, the real layer is deeper, and that's that I'm not mad at you because you snapped on me. I'm mad because now you make me feel sad. You make me feel like I've done something wrong. You make me feel insecure or something like that. So like it's the deeper layer it's always like the softer one. It's always the more vulnerable,
Yeah.
It's like the sadder one.
And the vulnerable one, so it even shifts from being mad to, oh, wait a minute. Okay, so the surface is I'm mad. But then when you go to the vulnerable space, because you just mentioned I'm sad, you're hurt.
Yeah.
I'm hurt. And it's what's so interesting in conversation, there's a difference between mad energy and anger and contempt and resentment compared to this hurt me. And you know, and I want to share that with you, and it makes me sad, and it makes me not feel whole or seen or valued or worthy, whatever. And so vulnerability takes from the surface and it goes down to where the real feelings are. I believe it takes you from the head. There really isn't much vulnerability in the head. It's your heart space.
Yeah,
so it gets you from your head to the heart. So it goes right back to the heart.
The longest road is from the head to the heart.
I know.
It's in a song. I can't remember what song.
But it seems so short.
It's so close, but it's so far away.
Yeah.
It is. We get lost and I think this is super common, especially in relationships where we react to something, we're offended. So we're like, well, that was shitty. And you're like, okay, Danica, what were you really feeling? Well, what I was really feeling like I wasn't important enough. Yeah. I was really feeling like you didn't see me. I was really feeling like you don't love me enough, or like you don't care about me, or like I'm not your highest priority, or like I'm not enough, and I'm not good enough, and I'm not this enough or that enough. Like that's really what's going to activate the heart space, and that's where you're going to get where you want to go with someone, whether it be a partner or a friend or family. When you peel the layers down to the deepest one, the vulnerable one, where you can go ahead and judge me for being wimpy. Go ahead and judge me for being soft. Go ahead and judge me for being sad and for crying and for all these things. But this is my truth. But guess what? If you can just practice that vulnerability of going to a space that feels really uncomfortable, you're going to find somebody meet you there.
Well, and like energy meets like energy.
Yeah.
So typically, when we speak from our space of vulnerability, which is from our heart, not always, but more than likely, when we're using those words from our truth, from the vulnerable space, it automatically activates their heart space. And if it doesn't, that's okay. you just move on from that. And sometimes when I'm in a space and I'm having a difficult conversation with my husband, it depends on where we're at. And if whether it's me or him, and if we're feeling a little bit of resistment, sometimes we just need to take a break and then readdress it when we can step into that heart space. Because the conversations that are not met with the same energy, it is like oil and water.
That does kind of happen. Sometimes it happens where somebody's not ready to see, not ready to hold space for that emotion.
True.
And that happens, and
Totally.
that's hurtful, and that's where there has to be an understanding with your family or your partner or your friends where you say, you have to trust, there has to be an understanding that emotion needs to be honored, right? That deep, sad, vulnerable emotion when you feel sad about something, when you feel, you feel not seen, you feel unimportant, you feel like you're not listened to, you feel like you're not valuable or you're not a priority, whatever it may be. That other person needs to see that and honor that. Mm-hmm. That's the only way you're ever going to keep that kind of conversation going, is when somebody looks at you and says, I'm so sorry to make you sad. I don't want you to be sad. That was never what I was intending. And that's usually the answer, right? But they can't react to you like, that's ridiculous. Why do you even think that? That's not the space where you're
exactly right.
Where you're going to come together. So there has to be an understanding with vulnerability with whoever it's with, that they have to honor that, right? Because then you're going to grow from there, but you're never going to grow from a space where somebody is judging.
Right.
Because they don't, defending, right? They're not even barely probably listening to your vulnerability, because it's almost impossible to not connect with the vulnerability, because it's from your heart.
Yeah.
They're thinking about the other part of it still. Mm-hmm. And the vulnerability is something they're not even listening to yet. They're not letting it resonate with their heart. They're just thinking like, but why are you mad? It's so stupid. It's dumb. Why would you even get mad at that? Why does that even matter? You're making a big deal out of nothing. Yeah. They're still stuck on that. Yeah. So until you can get someone to transition into the space of heart and feel and emotion and vulnerability, you're never going to be on the same page. So sometimes that takes time. Sometimes that takes, and sometimes
most of the time,
communication doesn't always come through words. Some people write it better. Some people need space to think. Yeah. There's all kinds of ways where people cope and like digest information, and at different speeds too. Like I'm a fast digester. I'm like, let's go, let's dive deep, let's go. And I'm like, why don't you hear me? And sometimes people just need some time, and they need their own ways, right? They need their own
you need your own ways to connect within, and we're all on different paths in our journey. We're all at different stages. We're all at different levels and elevations. And so that's when you start doing the vulnerable work, when you step into your vulnerability and you're really doing your own self-work around that. That's where I've found deeper levels of compassion and empathy. And so if I notice a triggered reaction, mm-hmm. I think, I once was there.
You mean by someone else? Like if someone
else. If someone else is triggered by a conversation I'm having or something I'm opening up, and it's a boom. Like I can feel if it's a wall. I can feel if it or if they're triggered. And so I instantly kind of go back to the rain thing, and because I feel that energy instantly, I'm like, woo! I kind of pushed a button that was not at all my intention, because not everyone wants to be vulnerable, and that's fine. Yeah. But when that happens, that's when I take that moment and I just step back, and then I actually feel into it and feel, is this the right time? Is this right for that person I'm in conversation with? And I just remember it's not personal. And so it's really interesting. And then when we're in relationships, with my husband and I, what we learned through our therapy are the tools to do exactly what you're talking about, which is, what's the most thing that we all want in a relationship? Yeah. And it's to be heard. Yeah. And to be seen. And a very simple thing is where, as I talk so much, I go on and on about my hurt feelings or what's going on. Okay, I'm in the vulnerability, I've got it. Mm-hmm. But then I kind of vomit for 30 minutes. And I lost him 5 minutes into it. And then, so not only is
you're in your own therapy session.
Right. So I'm just like, it's happening, it's flowing, but he can't grasp anything because it's too much. And whether defensiveness is coming in or it's just, matter of fact, it's just too much at that time. Yeah. What we learned is reflecting back to each other. So saying 1 or 2 sentences and then him reflecting that back to me, or me, here is what I heard. Mm-hmm. Very hard. Had no idea from a place of, especially if you're in a place of disconnect. What I found was interesting in this process when she held the space for us to do it, and Ben and I were sitting just like this, and I'm trying to think of an example. It was like, it really bothers me that you don't think to take the trash out when it's full, and I should say back to him just what he said. But what I would say back was a triggered thing for me, that you think that I'm not paying attention or that I'm lazy because I'm not taking the trash out, but really I'm doing other things, and it's not that I'm, and then I go into a whole other story.
I'm pretty bad at like trying to give my defense or explanation.
Yeah, well, it's just not an easy place it's to be vulnerable in that space, to actually hear what the person is bringing to the table. Mm-hmm. It's a very simple little thing, but that was something that we were, and literally she stepped in and she was like, Stace, that's not what he said. Try again. Ben, repeat to her. Mm-hmm. It was amazing that it took probably 30 minutes of just a simple back and forth to where I had to get in the space of not being triggered or not feeling, because a part of my, at that time, and still always will be, but is my self-worth and my value and what I bring, and not having to prove myself, but knowing and believing, and that's my stuff to do. But it's mine. I have to do it for myself. So anyways, that's a tool that we use in spaces when we do have to go into and have that conversation, because I definitely have seen the adverse reaction.
Yeah, I've heard,
and it goes into something totally different, which is not the intention.
Sometimes they're not ready.
Of the conversation.
Which I heard a good advice on like how to talk about something that's difficult is, asking the other person, okay, look, if I need to bring something up with you, when is the best time to do that? Because you can be offended if they don't want to talk about it when they do, but maybe it's just not the right space.
Yes.
Right? Like, I'm a morning person. So if I get up and want to address something and somebody's half asleep, not good timing, right? Or, I can address something, get through it, AKA listen to me really quickly over here off to the side in a group. And then it's like, no, that's not the time or the place. So it can also be beneficial, I've heard, to like say, hey, so-and-so, what is the best time for us to go through things? Or what's the best way, or how to address them? Because the timing can be something that that's off,
That's super valid, because that also was a part of the work that we did.
Oh, really?
Like, you're spot on. Oh, literally. Ben would bring up, for me, it's always a good time. I can go deep at like any time. Like, let's go.
That was actually for you?
Yeah, for me.
Yeah.
At any time.
Yeah.
But for Ben,
yeah,
it's not. And he had to, she said, so how is this, and when are these conversations coming up? And kind of the morning, like I wake up and if I'm feeling something, it just comes right out.
Yeah.
And
so transparent, I can't help it.
Right, it just comes. And so she, held that space and asked Ben, so for you, what is that? And what is kind of like a no time? And he said, before work, before we're both going into work. Like, I feel that we're in an energy of we're getting ready to hold space for other people and totally put our intention into other things. And to actually navigate through this is not before work. And so, and it's that simple, but I was like, oh. And now I have consciousness around it. So when I do feel that, I still, for myself, I still need to write down and feel what's coming through for me, but I wait to kind of work to have a conversation with him around it. And whatever time that is, and I love what you said, asking and checking in.
Yeah.
Because even at night when he's depleted, maybe that's not the right, it's totally okay to carve out time.
Because the last thing you want to do if you're being vulnerable is then be also dismissed or not seen again on an even, like, right? You're like, here I am, I'm
kind of
showing
creates
up.
more of the disconnect.
Even more disconnect, exactly, because you're like, holy shit, I'm gonna go there. I finally got the guts, or this is so important to me, I need to address it. Why isn't it, then we're projecting, why isn't it as important to you as it is to me, right? When it might just not be that big of a deal, or the answer might be really simple and clear and not gonna offend you at all. So yeah, to enter into that vulnerable space, and then to be rejected, basically, and not seen and not heard can make matters worse. So sometimes, so basically, it really all comes down to these good old-fashioned things like, it's all about communication. It is.
It is.
I explain relationships like, it's like I was saying the other day, it's like going to the doctor and you get your clean bill of health and you don't want to go, and then you finally go and you're like, oh man, I feel so much better. And then the best thing you can do after that is go regularly, so that no matter what happens in your life with your body, if anything comes in that needs to be fixed, you're stage one, you know what I mean? Like you catch it quickly. It's usually manageable. It's quick. It's easy. Then that is an easy way to catch things. And I feel like that's the same thing in relationships. You have to, if you can catch things early enough and stop letting them build up and stop pushing them down until the point where it literally just becomes part of your personality. With your partner, then you will always keep the decks clear, and you'll always feel this energy of being on the same page. Like I feel like you hear in relationships, they're like, I don't know, we're just out of sync right now. We're just not on the same page right now. It's because your energy, your vibration is off. Like someone is mad, someone is offended, someone is sad, someone is not seen, someone is thinking negative thoughts, and so you don't feel like you're in sync and you're on the same page because you're vibrationally not. And so I feel like with relationships, that's really important to just like keep up with it. And look, from my experience in this relationship, we're extremely transparent. Our energy is like, we can be standing in the kitchen talking about something, and then all of a sudden I can like turn the other way and not say anything, and all of a sudden he'll be like, what just happened? What's wrong? What's going on? And it's like, if you can get to the point where you feel that level of connection where you can immediately address something, look, sometimes it means you address things frequently, but you never get to the point where you have like these deep down, really deeply rooted problems that are going to take a lot of time to figure out. I would say for us, like it's nice. I don't feel like we ever. And it's not a matter of like, don't go to bed mad. I believe that, but it's really because I just don't want to stop until it's solved.
And it kind of doesn't feel good though. It also doesn't, like energetically, it's like, ooh.
Oh, it's horrible. Like bad sleep, like every now and again it happens, but then, but I really just have such a deep motivation to solve the difference or the lack of understanding or whatever's going on. I really, really, really want to solve it. And so, it's not like I don't use that rule, like don't go to bed mad. It's just because I'm so damn motivated to figure it out that I'm still awake because it's still today. I feel like we don't ever get to that point where we go to sleep without having that understanding. If we have an issue where we look at each other and go, I love you. Like I understand. Okay, I understand. Yeah. Okay, I'll work on that. Okay, I'll work on that. And then you move forward. But I think that there are so many relationships that basically, and this is like the fundamentals of relationships to me. There's 3 kinds. 1, you grow apart. 2, one grows and one doesn't. 3, you grow together. So the only way you can grow together is if you are on the same page, if you are on the same frequency, and if you are communicating, which is going to mean you're going to have to be vulnerable, but not vulnerable from a simple standpoint of like, well, that makes me mad. Well, you know what? I'm really pissed when you do this, or that's not fair, or whatever. It's the deeper one where it's the sad part. It's the sad one. If you don't get to the sad one, the hurt one, you're not vulnerable.
You're not going deep enough.
Yeah.
Gotta get a little deeper.
Yeah, I agree. Well, let's hope that this is some kind of insight into, just how it feels, because it's like, it's the most important element, in my opinion, to deep connections.
I completely agree. And I think your intention around this was to share in a space that we're all going through shit.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's bad, but it doesn't always feel good. And you're opening up the space that you're not alone. And this is a part of the journey. And I think that this is huge for you. It's very vulnerable for you. And I think it's a beautiful thing that you're offering. Yeah. And it's incredible. Yeah. So thank you.
Here's to crying.
Here's to lots
Here's
of crying.
the vulnerability, which is, so it doesn't have to be sad.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for listening to the Pretty Intense podcast today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like what you heard today and you want to hear more, please click on the subscribe button.